Railways are once again grinding to a halt as workers strike across the country after unions rejected the National Rail's pay offer, describing it as paltry.
Well, I think we're now joined by the RMT's General Secretary, Mick Lynch, whose union is striking today. We're hopefully going to be speaking to Andrew Haines, Chief Executive of National Rail, in a moment as well. But let's come to you first of all, if we can, Mick, because you're there on the picket line, hoping this strike will change people's minds and you will get some kind of result. Do you feel that that's likely, and the pain that it's causing for those using the trains in between is not going away, is it?
Well, we don't want to cause pain, we don't want disruption. We want a settlement to the issues in this dispute, which are based around job security, conditions of service and pay. And of course, in the train operating companies, we've got an enormous attack on our pension scheme. So I'm prepared to work with anyone of influence in the industry. We work with the negotiators, Andrew Haines' team, and we work with the train operating company's senior people. We've had discussions this week. But the gap between us is still there. We've got to find a way to bridge that. But I fear that because of the political interference that's happening with the Department for Transport and the Treasury, we're not able to do that. We've also got a dispute tomorrow on London Underground, which is more of the same, that the funding from the railway has been cut. And that means an attack on rail workers across the land. And I think many workers are suffering from that at this moment. They're not getting a square deal. But we'll keep working with the companies to get a negotiated settlement, and as soon as we can do that, we'll put it to our members, and hopefully we can get the railway back providing the service that the public needs.
Mr Lynch, Andrew Haines is literally sitting a few hundred metres away from you at Euston Station. Can't you just pop up to his office right now and just get this sorted between the two of you?
Well, we try and do that. I speak to Andrew whenever he wants to, and his team. We spoke to Network Rail this week. They have got an enormous agenda for change that will change our members' working lives. There's a lot of propaganda about people not willing to work together, not travelling in vans, which is nonsense and hyperbole, really. There's some detailed stuff about the way our members work. It's about their futures, it's about how many jobs there's going to be in this industry, how people are going to be treated, and there's a pay element to this issue as well. So we will work those problems through, but what we need is the management to have the ability to negotiate. And I think this has been partially caught up in the Tory leadership election or selection process that they're going through. And I think because those candidates have both taken a turn to the hard right in this country, it's very difficult to find the ability to create a settlement. And of course, Network Rail is only one half of this dispute. There are another 20,000 plus members of our union that are working for the train operators, and they've got a very similar diet of change that the companies are putting forward to them.
Okay,
and we haven't had a pay offer at all for those companies.
If he was prepared to talk to you this morning, would you be prepared to go and talk to him and call off this strike?
Yeah, I'll speak to Andrew Haines any day of the week at any time, and he knows where I am, and he knows his senior officials are in touch with me, and we're in dialogue with them constantly. And we'll be speaking to them again early next week in very intensive talks. Andrew knows what the problems are. I know what the problems are. We've got to find a way to bridge the gap between us. OK, well, in the meantime, it's not just those who rely on the trains that are having a tough time. Of course, we know the background is a cost of living crisis for everyone, including your members. And the strikes that have already taken place will be a loss of pay for them. About £1,500, I think, is around the figure that people are saying have been lost in pay on average. That does mean that when you're holding out, I know it's not all about money, but when you're holding out for a pay increase above the rate of inflation, you're talking about a 2% difference. Haven't they already lost that in the strike? Well, it's not just a pay dispute, as I've just set out. It's about job security.
No, but just looking at the pay bit of it, because I realise it's about a lot more.
And it's about pensions. Yeah, our members are dug into this dispute. They knew what the dispute was about at the beginning. We told them it wasn't going to be a sprint, it's going to be more of a long-term issue. I addressed a meeting last night online of thousands of our members. They understand exactly what the implications of this dispute are. We will support our members in whichever way we can. We're getting massive support from the public, from other trade unions, from passers-by, and even the travelling public.
What support are you giving
members are very
members?
Very
What
committed
support
to this
are you giving
dispute.
members? Because you're on a six-figure salary. I'm not going to demonise you for that this morning. There's plenty of politicians on a six-figure salary.
I'm not on a six-figure salary. That's completely untrue.
So the newspaper reports that your salary
are
untrue.
I'm not on a six-figure salary.
Well, you're on
significantly
more than many of your members are. And like I say, I'm not interested in demonising you for that this morning. What I'm trying to ask you here is you've got members who are on very low salaries, as Kate has said. How much longer can they really continue with these strikes for? Because you might be committed to them. You say your members are committed to them, but actually many of them are going to start feeling the pain pretty soon, aren't they?
Well, of course they feel the pain. They're making a sacrifice to stand up for their rights, to stand up for their industry, to stand up for safety, and to stand up for the ability for workers in this country and themselves to earn a living. There is a cost of living crisis. You don't get anything without being committed to a cause, and our members are fully committed to it. You'll see around the country today that they've heeded the call to go on strike. The picket lines will be vibrant right across Britain today. We're going to have mass demonstrations. We had a massive demonstration last night of support. We had one in Scotland on Tuesday, and thousands of our people attended our online rally last night of solely RMT members. They're completely committed to this dispute, and they understand what they're doing, and we will support them. The rest of the trade union movement will support them, as well as many members of the general public. So we know exactly what we're doing. Our members support this issue and will continue to do so until we have created a settlement along with the companies that we can put to them so that they can vote on it to see whether they want to accept it or not. So our members know the implications. They know exactly what needs to be done to get a result from this dispute.
OK, Mick, thanks very much indeed. We're going to speak now to the Chief Executive of National Rail, Andrew Haines, whose pay offer was rejected by railway workers. Not just about pay, though, made very clear there. And we know it's not just about pay, isn't it? If we can come to the first point that we were trying to get out of it. I know you two don't want to talk to each other on air. I understand these conversations are private. But you are literally yards from each other right now. And the frustration for those on the platform trying to travel, to see that picket line, to have the disruption, to hear that actually Mick says he would meet you any day of the week to talk about this and try and resolve it. It's so frustrating to think you can't just go into a room together, along with all the other people involved, of course, and have that chat and try and find a way forward.
I mean, it absolutely is frustrating, Kate, but we've been talking for over 18 months. We started these talks actually with Mick's predecessor. And so there's no lack of readiness to talk. The issue is that there are some fundamental disagreements. But and look, I have a huge amount of respect for Mick Lynch. He's an absolute class operator. But where I have a fundamental disagreement is I don't think colleagues are clear on what they're striking for now. Mick mentioned pensions. That's not an issue for Network Rail. He mentioned job security. We've given a guarantee of a job for every single person in Network Rail who wants a job affected by our proposals. Now that is we've done our very best to meet those sort of issues, but the common factor here is the RMT. It's not the government. There are strikes on TfL. There are, 13, 14 train operators, Network Rail. All of those issues are being struck together, and I think many people striking are not clear. That's why we think the way to solve this is to put our offer, a very decent, fair offer, to a referendum of RMT members, my staff, and I think that's the way to solve this.
But Mr Haines, pay is a crucial element of all of this. And if you look at the inflation figures that came out earlier this week, 10.1%, you're offering 8% to these workers. Can't you understand why they just want their pay to keep pace with prices?
I can completely understand it, absolutely understand it. But the challenge
you understand it, but you're not going to offer them that pay, are you? And don't you want your workers to come to work having heated their homes, having had a decent meal, ready to work, ready to take on the day, not worrying about all of those other issues in their lives?
Indeed, and of course striking makes that worse for them, doesn't it? It makes it much harder, Kate's already referenced £1,500. By today, it'll be over £2,000 that people have lost because they've gone on strike. But the harsh challenge we've got in the railway system is we've only got three sources of funding. The taxpayer, who pay more than 50% of the railway, fares, or making our system more efficient. Now,
well, you say that, but Arriva, which runs the bus service in Liverpool, some of the buses anyway in Liverpool, managed yesterday to give their workers an 11% pay rise. So how do they manage it if you can't?
Well, I don't know how Arriva manage it, but they're not part of the rail system. As you said, it's a bus company, it's a private bus company, and their funding arrangements will be dealt with locally. The harsh reality is that we only have those sources of funding. And therefore, if we're not going to ask the taxpayer or fare payer for more money, more pay will mean more job cuts, which is why we've come up with a balance. 8% is a good offer and is supported by job security, because what I don't want people is coming to work with a pay rise, but then worried that their job is going to be under threat because we've actually bankrupted the company to give them a pay rise in the short term. That won't help them. What will help them is giving them the chance to vote on what we think is a fair deal, and then we will see where this dispute goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to come back and get one word from Mick in a moment. But, Andrew, I just want to say to you, and Mick, I hope is listening as well, I've had reason for the last couple of weeks to spend pretty much all of my time on trains or in the hospital with Derek, and I've found that, actually, the staff have been extraordinary, and they're already struggling with changes to the timetable that are causing frustration with customers, that are part of the things that are being brought in that the unions are objecting to. They're already struggling with a severe shortage of drivers and staff. And part of the change you want to make is to allow more of those to go, people to go. So it just feels like something's got to give here.
Yeah, but Kate, what I want is to give people who want to go the chance to go. You know, we want to give voluntary severance to people. But
you've got to replace them because it's already short. So it doesn't actually save you any money, does it really? No, we would only allow that to happen in places where we could make the relevant savings. We're not talking about taking people away. You know, in jobs like signallers, for example, they don't feel that's the case, though. They don't feel that's the case for the ones I've been talking to. But it could be anecdotal. Could be anecdotal because they're already.
And that's the challenge here, isn't it? There's so much talk. And as you said, people are doing a fantastic job in keeping the railway going at the moment in really challenging circumstances, which is why I think the right thing for all of us is to put that pay deal to them, and then they can choose for themselves whether or not that's what they want to do. And I really urge Mick and the RMT to do that in the interest of all of us, the railway system, travelling public, taxpayers, and our staff.
OK, Mick, let's just come back to you. You've been offered job security for your members. You've been offered security on pensions for your members. Why is this still going on when there's so much at stake and there's a limit to the pot, he's arguing?
Well, the pay offer that's been made is over 3 years. We didn't get a pay deal last year, and for the next 2 years it will be 8% in total. Inflation yesterday was 12.3%, the retail price index. We don't know what inflation is going to be next year, so that's a gamble. And they want us to accept all the measures that at this time are unacceptable. Now, Andrew's paying a massive bonus scheme, we think in excess of £150 million to managers. If we scrap that bonus scheme, for instance, we could fund many of the changes he wants, and we could fund a decent pay deal. Instead, managers are taking tens of thousands of pounds out every year in bonuses, and there are ways to make savings and to create a deal. So we want a square deal, a balanced deal between what Andrew wants to achieve in terms of change and what our members need in terms of their work-life balance and their conditions of service and what they earn. We're struggling, our members, like everybody else. That we can get back around the table and make a deal with Andrew and his team, but I think the Department for Transport needs to allow that to happen. OK, Mick Lynch from the RMT Union, thanks so much for your time this morning. Thanks also to Andrew Haynes from Network Rail. And I just find it extraordinary that those two are metres away from each other. They didn't want to debate one another on air, and they won't get around the table this morning either at Euston Station and just talk this through. Yeah, they can't shift on the basic positions, can they? But let's hope they can, because those working on the railways are struggling and those using them are struggling, and we want it sorted out, don't we?